One encouraging thing about this discourse, to my mind, is the fact that the increasing momentum to emphasize neighborhood associations is, to my mind, good because we are beginning to think of urban environments as places and not mere spaces. Because for a long time, such initiatives have been confined to rural areas. And because of that, the urban areas ended up just being spaces, abstract spaces. And probably that is why the problems that Prof and my colleague, my good friend and the chair and the treasurer of the KIP have mentioned, we have not been able to go very far. But hopefully, as we start thinking of this as places and not abstract mere spaces, I believe we are beginning to go somewhere. Now, when you look at the Bill of Rights, which is now considered to be very broad, we sometimes look at it in a very selective way. But whether you look at Article 42 on environment, on environment, yes, Article 43 on socio-economic rights, Article 10, if you are up before that, on sustainable development, Article 60 on principles of land management, Article 66 on the state, which in this case means all organs, not national government, including county governments, shall regulate the use of land. We seek to submit that for that to happen, as my predecessors have said, we must have a framework. And that framework is actually a planning framework, whether it's at national level or at county level. We all know that the national government restricts itself, if you read at section 21 of part 1 of the 4th schedule, restricts itself to broad policy frameworks. And then part 2, county governments implement that. So at the national level, we already have a national spatial plan, which is in place. We have the national land use policy, which was adopted by the House, is now awaiting launch. And we also have the urban development policy. The moderator said one of the concerns, which was true, was the issue of failing to effectively implement plans, which Prof has said, if they are not implemented, they are not plans at all. I can't agree more. Now, there has been a lacuna. And the lacuna has been that when you look at the County Government Act carefully, I think it is section 104. It says that there shall be no appropriation of funds outside a planning framework. But when you look at the Finance Management Act, there has not been a corresponding provision for budgeting at the national level. And yet, when you look at the MTP, the amount of money actually that is appropriated at the national level, and this is a very subtle thing people have never noticed, that whereas the county governments, I think this last financial year, were getting about 400 billion. When you look at what happens at the county level, it's mind-boggling, which means more money is being appropriated at national level and not at county level, but without a corresponding requirement for a plan. That is something Kenyans have never noticed. And that is something, as people talk of, give us more money at the county level, unless we look at the national level where the lab sets are and the rest. When we come to evaluate, if we are not very careful, when we come to evaluate the effectiveness of devolution, we might find that it is not very successful because we forgot to provide a corresponding requirement at the national level. However, all is not lost. We already know we have a national spatial plan. Many have said that it is not, it has not helped much, but I wish to differ. Because what happened is that on the first day of March, first day of March last year, it was launched. On the second day of March, the president himself wrote a letter and said that MTP3, which is now in progress, must be anchored on the National Spatial Plan. So the good thing now is, even if there is no corresponding provision that the National Treasury must appropriate funds based on a plan, at least the MTP process that is ongoing now is now pegged on the provisions of the National Spatial Plan. And what I would just add is, because now CARA is actually a structured way of interacting with the national government, I encourage you that when the MTP3 is put into public debate, kindly go through it, because this could be a beginning of putting things in the right order as we move on. So the MTP, and you know, after MTP, all other subsequent budgetary processes, including the budget statements, will be premised on that. So we hope that this could be a stopgap measure before, hopefully, Parliament, in its wisdom, places it in the Public Finance and Management Act. There are legislative frameworks. We know we have the Urban Areas and Cities Act. Now, as Charles said, and he was right, the Urban Areas and Cities Act is very weak, very lean on management. And there is already, as you know, the Urban Areas and Cities in bracket Amendment Bill 2017, currently before Parliament. We have looked at it, we have made our own comments. Some were accepted, some were not accepted. But from where I sit, I still feel that KURA should engage the National Assembly and Senate, so that when that bill finally comes out, we have something that is going to ensure that we manage the urban environments properly. The good thing the good thing they have done is that at least neighborhood associations are already recognized. The definitions is clear, but we need to go a little bit ahead. There is a recent decision by the Environment and Land Court in Nakuru. I think it is petition number 16 of 2014. I come from Nakuru. There is a neighborhood association in a place called London. And what happened in that place called London, that association is ahead of where I come from. We are in another association. What happened was that there was a structure plan for Nakuru, 1996. And there was an advisory plan to determine the plot ratios, how high you should go, the coverages, and the setbacks. Now what happened is somebody just decided to go up, put up, I think, the 4-story flats. And the neighborhood association moved to court last year. And actually, the thing was stopped. It was stopped because the development was contrary to an advisory plan, courtesy of a neighborhood association. What am I saying? Neighborhood association should now move to engage Parliament on that bill. We can't do it for you. But it is upon you, anytime that bill is placed before the House and the stakeholder association, kindly make proper presentation so that the voice of CARA and others is considered. We have a properly structured way of engaging both levels of government. So, with that kind of move, we are beginning to see a hope. With that decision, we are probably beginning to see some light in the other side of ensuring that things move in the right way. Why have we found ourselves in the quagmire we are in? How comes that all the plans, whether 1948 Nairobi plan, Nakuru plan, and others, Nakuru plan was 59 first, and others, we appear not to be making headway. We have the county spatial plans and the county integrated development plans. And the county integrated development plans, once the term ends, we have a new system. It is my humble view, I may be wrong, but as a planner for almost 30 years now, that the problem is we have no culture of planning. If I may quote the late Professor Okoth-Ogendo, he once said, African countries have constitutions without constitutionalism. Could it be that yes, we are doing a lot as a government, national government, county governments, as other associations, universities are doing a lot of research, but we do not have a planning culture as a people? And I think that is where now CARA comes in. Hopefully with this kind of structured engagement, we shall develop a culture of planning to the extent that if I'm doing a development in my hometown of Nakuru, I don't even need to fear the askaris. I just submit my building plans for approval. We don't have that culture. We submit because we are fearing the askaris will come. We submit because we are fearing that the neighborhood association is going to call a special committee to discuss my development. Probably you guys need to move into that so that we start developing a culture so that somebody feels there are certain things you can do. Along that route, because I will give out of examples from Nakuru, people have developed in that road, up to the road reserve to Kabarak. And here the county government of Nakuru is going to put up pedestrian walkways. Now they have to knock down people's buildings for pedestrian walkways, not for a dual carriageway. You can see where we are. It means, therefore, we have not, as a people of Kenya, developed a planning culture, because we all know today we need pedestrian walkways. But now people will be forced to knock down their structure. So, I implore upon you kindly, let's move the debate, the discourse, to the next level of ensuring that we already have a planning culture. Political will, that's a must. There must be political will. I have given you an example of what the head of state did with NSP, and I think this needs to be taken elsewhere so that we now have a political will to ensure that things move in the right direction. If we do not do that, as Charles said, our footprints, our archaeological footprints, our towns will continue to grow without control. What my good friend Titus used to call amoebic growth, which is obviously not sustainable. Finally, the issue of development control. This is an area that we all need concerted effort. We cannot leave it to the county governments alone, but because unless we have development control, unless we control this, what will happen is that our urban areas will continue to grow without into the resource surroundings that we have. Therefore, as I end, because I want to take too much time, we must not view urban areas in isolation. We must look at it in conjunction with the surrounding, because there is also a risk of just thinking of urban planning without considering the regional concept. And the problem is that if we do that, we shall land or fall into, or we shall land into the urban area so quickly, and forget that all these areas are interrelated. So that's why you have the National Spatial Plan, and we now trust and hope that this will not continue to be cascaded into the lower level plans, into other plans based on the concept or the principle of subsidiarity. You do what you're able to do at whatever level, and you do it well. Finally, We are amending we are working on the standards, the handbook, the planning handbook that has been there for a long time. We don't know it's obsolete. It must need to be rethought, relooked. I think this is an area we are actually working on, and at an appropriate time we shall open the debate and the comments to all of you. The reason is this: after that, county governments are allowed to have land use or physical planning county-specific laws. Nothing stops them from doing that, but there must be a framework that gives the standards. So, CARA will be very useful at that level, because you'll be able to assist in coming up with bylaws of things like setbacks, the color of the building, plot ratios, line of sight, and those kind of things. So you find yourselves now moving into that realm of county-specific or neighborhood-specific action area planning. That is where we are now moving into. So after we have the broad frameworks, we expect the county government to move. So when you hear Nairobi, Kisumu, Kakamega coming up with the land use laws or physical planning laws at their level, which they are allowed by the Constitution, it is very important for you to put reasonable comments into that. Failure to which the cycle of poor environment will continue to build. So kindly elevate, enhance your thinking as we move on in implementation of the Constitution and in issues of devolution. Thank you.